Hello, welcome to another of these videos. This is a sort of very last minute decision to do this just now, just because a few of you have been in touch and you're panicking about TMA04, and so I thought that maybe I should step in at this stage and just give you a quick supportive video hug. I don't know whether that's a real thing. Yeah, right. The first thing is, if you're panicking, then you are probably not the only person who's panicking. And to reassure you, I hadn't actually looked properly at the question itself myself. I knew what it was about vaguely, but I hadn't actually read the question. So I just went on myself and looked in the assignment book, and if it was me writing this question, I would be panicking too, because it's a really tough question. And it's a horrible question. It's one of those ones where you read it and you think, I think I know what that means, and then you still don't know what it means after you've read it about 50 times. So first of all, rest assured, you're not the only person that's dealing with this tricky question, and that includes me, and that's a good thing for you, because it means that when I come to market, I've not really got any preconceptions about what I'm expecting from you. As long as you provide me with an answer that fulfills the question, you're not going to be in trouble. So your task is really to be really methodical and to work out what's being looked for, and try and cover every eventuality. Take the pressure off yourself. Don't expect that you're going to be able to come up with a definitive answer to anything. You're not going to. You're new to this subject. You're a learner, and you don't have all of the sort of required training and information at your fingertips. You're really just going to be attempting to give as full an answer as possible based on the resources that you have, and those resources are limited, so your answer is going to be limited. Just do as best you can with what you've got. So the question, just to recap, is how does the concept of literary practices contribute to our understanding of text and how it is used? Now, I think one thing that might help, or answer by reference to any of the areas of English language study covered in block 2. So I can't coach you on this question. It would be unfair to do this. Tutors aren't supposed to give you the answer, so I can't really talk in much more than general terms. But I would say my tips for this question are, first of all, work out the concepts that you're working with, which are literacy practices, and you're also going to need to define text somewhere along the way. You're going to say what you mean by text. And as you probably gathered, you're going to have to provide evidence to support your discussion. So you're going to have to draw evidence from block 2 in the form of linguistic evidence, which could be specific types of language, but also in the form of studies into this area. You're going to have to quote authors. So those are your main tasks. To break it down, you're going to need to understand and communicate what you know literacy practices are, and then also you're going to define other key terms such as text. But I think the trick in this question is that you're not just defining literacy practices, you're defining the concept of literacy practices. So in the same way that conversation analysis was a concept in the last task, it was a framework, you're also defining literacy practices as something that can be used in order to understand something else. So it's a framework, almost a concept. And that isn't as obvious in the question, but it is more obvious when you read the guidance, and it's saying the literacy practices concept is very important. So it would be confusing if you were trying to define literacy practices and then define text. How does one explain the other? But if you're giving more information on literacy practices as a concept, more as a framework, as a tool for understanding other things, then the question will be hopefully a bit clearer for you. There's no two ways around it. It's a difficult question, but that means that there's a chance to shine. If you can really draw on your resources that you've developed so far, then there's no reason why you can't provide a decent answer. But perhaps it will take the pressure off if you realise that what you're aiming for isn't maybe as high as you think it is. Maybe you're putting too much onus on yourself to come up with, the definitive answer to this question, and that's not not your task. Your task is to answer this as best you can with what you've got available. So I would say that go back to the question if you're going around in circles or you're worried about it, and just try and calm yourself and try and feel a bit better about your task generally, and then just do some planning. Lots of you got feedback from me last time about how you didn't really produce an academic argument, and some of you were confused about what I meant by that. It's not enough to just say, well, this is what the course book says about this in general terms. What you're essentially doing in any academic argument is you're saying, this is the case, and this is why, and this is the evidence that I'm going to use to prove my argument. So think in terms of almost like you're in a debate. So you've got to have as much fuel as possible to prove your way of thinking. Now, it may be that it's not your particular conviction. It might be that you're presenting two sides of an argument, and often when the question has the word discuss in it, that's what it means. You're saying you're being asked to look through an area of controversy where there might be differing perspectives. In this one, you're really just being asked to give your point of view based on what you've read, or not necessarily your personal point of view, but your objective argument. That's what I mean in academia when I say your point of view. So you're going to say, this is what I think, this is what literacy practices are, this is the concept that's used, and this is how it comes up in this subject area. And this is how it defines text. And this is what text is, and this is how I'm going to show that. So it's really quite a simple thing. You're just saying a one-liner, really. This is the answer. But then you're going to spend the rest of your essay going on to say why and what proof you have. And that's what comes from the course book. So that's saying, well, in this case, this is what happens. In this case, this is what happens. Here is my evidence. Here is what people have written on the subject. And then to finish off, I'll just quickly summarise what we've talked about in this essay. And that's really what an academic argument is. It's not just describing what you read or have read. It's not just describing what things are. It's not just saying this is what literacy practices are. Your academic argument is saying this is how it does something. This is a particular view of that thing, and this is why. Now, I can't really say much more. I'm very restricted. And I do have sympathy with you, and I'm glad it's not me that's writing this essay. However, I think you all have learned enough to be able to dig deep and do a good answer to this question. And the good thing is that because it's such a challenging question, it's likely that it's quite easy to do well at it if you make sure that you know what's expected of you. So for those of you who maybe are guilty of not doing this, go back to the question, read it again, read the guidance thoroughly, then go and do what it tells you to do, i.e. find information from those blocks. Don't stray from the task. Keep on point, do what it tells you to do. And then when you're ready, plan your answer. Get a piece of paper and just write generally what you're going to write in your introduction. What is the question about? What's it asking me to do, and how am I going to answer it? Then go on and find your evidence. You might, I generally say for an answer, you have maybe at least 3 paragraphs. Obviously, you're going to have more than 3 paragraphs. It will depend. But you're going to have 3 main topics, 3 main ways of proving your thesis or your argument. So, and that's drawing upon the evidence. So what are those 3 rough areas? It might be 3, 4, 5. It depends how much depth you go into. And then finally, and have you shown what you were setting out to do, and concluding, summarising what you've said. Okay, so I hope you found this useful. Possibly you are still banging your head off the table, but I would say you're not the only person, as I mentioned at the beginning. Everybody's banging their heads off the table. So let's all collectively stand back and be sensible about this. It's just a TMA. You can do it. You might find it difficult, but when you've done it, you can have a lovely big glass of wine or a box of chocolates or whatever you enjoy doing. Okay, so I'm going to sign off now. If anyone has any concerns about this, just email me or phone me. I'm here at the end of the receiver, and I can reassure you and push you onwards, because you are very, very nearly there. It's TMA04, just one more after this, so keep going. Okay, bye-bye.